Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the meta shift that nobody else is talking about. And it's a meta shift that I've noticed over the past few months, and I didn't really understand why it was the case until recently. I sat down and tried to figure out why this was happening at pro play, and I've gathered together a few points that makes the argument very solid. This meta shift is actually quite legit, and so it's important for you guys to know about it to either implement it into your own game, or at least when you're watching pro play, you can kind of understand more what is happening and why. The meta shift is that skirms are actually replacing the role of the archer as far as being the secondary unit in the best composition in Feudal Age. Now, this might seem inconsequential to most people, but this is actually a really huge deal because for a large number of years, scouts and archers were considered to be the best composition in Feudal Age. The reason for that is that the scout is undisputed the best Feudal Age unit, especially in extended Feudal Age play. You get bloodlines, you get armor and attack, it has the best stats out of any unit, and it's on a horse, giving you that mobility advantage. And to complement the scout, it's very natural that archers would be the best secondary unit because the archers covers the weaknesses of the scouts the best. The archers can kill off infantry like spearmen with ease, and they also do a lot of damage against enemy scouts, so it felt natural that scouts and archers were the best comp. The archers also allow you to break through walls easily because the scouts will break the walls and the archers will kill any villager that tries to repair behind it, unless of course you use a market, but that's a trick that is uncounterable at the moment. The scouts and archers were the best composition, and this is indeed still reflected in team games today. Flank goes archers, pocket goes scouts, and this is all well and good. Scouts and archers still dominating the team game scene, and in this video specifically we're talking about how the skirmishers are popping off in 1v1. In team game, it's still scouts and archers that are the best because, very importantly, it is two different people doing scouts and archers. It's not the same guy trying to do both. It's very important to understand that because one guy doing both scouts and archers is a lot harder than one guy doing scouts and skirms, and I'll explain why in a second. Going back to 1v1s though for a second, it's very clear nowadays that skirms and scouts is actually taking over and is now the best composition. And there's a few reasons for this. Now, number one, infantry is pretty out of the meta at the moment, which makes opening skirms a lot safer. Think of it this way: if the threat is like 3 meta arms coming in and we up at the same time 20 pop, then it's a lot harder to get the skirms out of the field because you have to deal with the meta arms first. Because people are upgrading to Feudal Age so much faster these days compared to like 2-3 years ago, opening skirms is a lot safer because you're simply not scared of meta arms. You're upping like 18 pop, the meta arm player can't really go much faster, it's going to be at like 19 pop, 20 pop, and so you have that 25 or 50 seconds extra to get a few units on the field. And of course, because skirms move faster than infantry, if you get a few skirms out in the field, you can easily push back the infantry, and it's not even a threat even against skirmishers. So opening skirms is perfectly safe even against all infantry openings at the moment, and even if it got a little bit dicey, you can open 1 or 2 archers and then just switch into skirms. It's also worth noting that recently the skirm spear setup gained a lot of popularity, and so skirmisher spearman is a perfectly fine strategy to push away enemy scouts in the early game. And so as you can see, in general, skirms are a pretty solid and safe opening. But there's also one other thing that's happening behind the scenes that makes skirmishers even better. Number one, they are 10 resources cheaper than archers, so getting to skirms is a bit more of a budget option. But then this is the most important thing: they actually produce faster than archers in Feudal Age. This is absolutely massive because it lets you mass up more skirms in comparison to archers, which allows you to win earlier fights much more easily. It also lets you snowball those early fights. Number one, you're on a cheaper unit, and number two, you're gonna have more of them, so you get to easily win the early few fights and snowball that advantage going into the late Feudal Age stage. This way, if one guy is on one range skirms and one guy is on one range archers, the guy with the skirmisher will easily be able to outmass the archers and just be able to bully the archers in the fight. Now I'm going to talk about the big scenario that really this whole video comes down to. If one guy has scouts into skirms and the other guy has scouts into archers, who will actually win the fight? Well, usually the way you get into the skirm scout composition is you go scouts, then your opponent's on archers, so you switch into skirms, and then the archer player will start with archers and then switch into scouts himself. Now in this scenario, the skirm player, or the scout into skirm player, will actually have more scouts on the field because he's starting out with the scout production. The archer player will have more archers on the field because he's starting out with archer production. Keep in mind, both these strategies are completely legit, but when they face off into each other in the middle of the map, the guy with the scouts and the skirms will have more scout numbers because he started out with them, and he'd have a very decent amount of skirmishers, maybe not more than the enemy archers, but he have a decent number because they produce faster and because they are cheaper. So he's gonna arrive to the fight with enough skirmishers to one-hit archers and more scout numbers. So then the archer player, the archer guy that open archers then transition to the scouts, he's got less scouts but a good amount of archers. How the fight will play out is that the skirm player will just simply take 6 or 7 skirms and rush at the archer numbers and just hit and run forward attacking the archers. Meanwhile, the scout numbers that he has that are superior to the archer player will just patrol in and fight the enemy scouts. And what happens here is that the archer player has to scramble away from the skirms and then try to use his archers to hit enemy scouts and not the skirmishers. But this just doesn't work. The skirmishers kill the archers faster than the archers can kill the scouts. And so so the skirmisher player will walk forward, thin out the archer numbers. The skirmishers will probably die because they're rushing in, they're on the front lines. But then after the skirms die and after the archers are thinned out, the higher scout numbers will win the fight. And this is such an interesting dynamic that you see time and time again in pro play at the moment, where the skirms and scout player will actually win all of these early engagements. And this goes completely against what we've known for like 20 years now, that archers and scouts are the better combination in Feudal Age. There's one other thing that's going on behind the scenes that makes the scouts into skirms play a little bit better, which is the fact that you don't need a mining camp on gold. This is saving that player 100 wood and the walking time that the villagers go from the town center to the gold, giving you that 100 wood to just instead seed more farms and get the scouts number higher. Funnily enough, you don't need any gold to get fletching on skirmishers since you have the 50 that you start with. Well, you start with 100, 50 for loom, 50 for fletching. And so unless you need bloodlands, you need 0 gold to fully upgrade scouts and skirms. You can get forging and armor on the scouts. You can go double stable for more scout production. All of this without needing a mining camp. So when considering all these factors into play, not needing a mining camp, faster producing skirms, the fact that skirms are cheaper than archers, you can see that the scouts into skirms is actually the best composition in Feudal Age. And it's absolutely crazy to see this because it's not been the case for a very long time. Now, back in the day, what happened was they favored the archer numbers. They'd go scouts, 1 stable into 2 range archers to get the archer number up. Their thought process was that if we get a big enough archer mass, we can start one-hitting scouts, and that is the best way to play Feudal Age. But today's thought process is, I just need enough skirms to one-shot archers, like 6 skirms, maybe like 8 or 10 skirms, so that if I lose a few, I'm still one-shotting archers. That is like a sweet spot. And then I need to just spam scouts, focus on the scout number, because the scouts is what's the best unit in Feudal Age. So all I need to do is have enough skirms to where I'm able to take out spearmen and archers in one shot, and then the scouts will do the rest of the work. And that is exactly what we see in pro play at the moment, which is people focusing on their scout number instead of the archer number. And in extended Feudal Age gameplay, where there's, both sides are open and there's a lot of damage to be had, villagers are exposed, the scouts and skirms are dominating because of the tempo that strategy is generating. Now, with all this in mind, it doesn't mean that the archer player, or archers into scouts, cannot beat the scout skirm player. Of course, the archer player can win fights. It takes a lot of skill to manage the skirms and scouts composition. In fact, it takes a lot of skill to manage both compositions. And so it could just come down to who's got the better micro. But it is worth noting that the scouts into skirms player has a slight edge in terms of having more units on the field and having the aggression initiative. The archer player does have a few other advantages that is worth noting though. Sneak attack with archers is way more deadly than sneak attack with skirms, and so you have a little bit more prowess on the map with your archers, so that the skirms player has to be a bit more careful. And it is also worth noting that if the archer player is able to wall up, he can easily just camp behind his walls with archers, and scouts plus skirmishers are not the best tool to break into walls because the skirms don't do that much damage to vills, and so walling up behind with villagers is a lot easier compared to walling against archers. So the archer player does have a few extra defensive tools that he can think about: full walling, sneaking a few archers, and just defending behind walls with the remaining archers, and then playing towards castlage. However, if walling is not a possibility, I firmly believe that scouts and skirms is currently the best Feudal Age composition and the most practical one that allows you to snowball games in the quickest fashion. Maybe it's just me, but this development has been pretty incredible to witness because, as I mentioned, this is basically 20 years of meta, or maybe not 20, but let's say 5 to 10 years of meta, where I started with Hunt's War, people valuing archers, to people just completely switching up. As people got better at the game, they're starting to realize these little things that make other compositions better, and the play is just getting better across the board, which makes these meta shifts happen. It's really crazy to think about. No balance changes happened to archers or skirms. Maybe crossbow getting a little more expensive, but that's a different story. In Feudal Age, there has been no balance changes towards skirms and archers, and yet the meta is shifting. That is such a crazy thing to happen, and this is why I love Age of Empires so much. Hopefully you guys have found this video interesting. Let me know if you guys did notice something similar yourself. Let me know if you disagree and you've seen different things in pro games when you're watching, or maybe when you're playing. If there's any pros out there watching, who knows? And yeah, until next time, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe. Check me out on Patreon for exclusive guides, link in the description below, or my Twitch channel, also link in the description below for my daily live streams. Till next time, take care and peace.